Please put your hands together for Muirrieyah de la O.
Hello. So I just want to say this is not the costume that I intended to come in tonight. I'm going to start off with that. I was going to be Maeve Millay from Westworld. You know, Tandy Newton just won the Emmy for playing like the most badass android madam in the entire recreated Old West, but the lace to my corset, the thing that laces it up, was missing. So this is what I was going to be at Freak Fest, and I like to think it ties in with the theme because, hello, Iron Man, who hasn't heard that song. I'm also the only Avenger that did not disintegrate at the end of Infinity War, so badass. Come on, if you haven't seen it by now. But okay. So this story takes place on May 30th of this year, which is my favorite rapper queen, Remy Ma's birthday. And I was actually opening for like my favorite Madison band. I go to a lot of local music shows here in town. I've gone to a lot of punk shows. In fact, my first story that I ever told at Madison Story Slam was about a punk show, and I've told many stories about my experiences with that whole scene. So one of my favorite bands in town, which is a three-piece garage punk band called the Momotaros. They're awesome. You guys should check them out. I was opening for them over at Mickey's Tavern on Williamson Street, and that was something that I'd always wanted to do, kind of partially just for me, because I spent years going to those shows. I dated some of the guys in that scene, and it was kind of a personal fuck you also to some of those guys. Like, not only do I not play music, but I'm going to open one of these shows, like, and I don't even play an instrument, so like, middle fingers up. But I could do it, and I did do it, and I hosted the show, and that was just like a personal goal of mine for a really long time, so I was kind of proud of myself for that. And I told a story, true story, about how when I was like 12, going on 13, my mom walked in on me, and I should also say that like many of the storytellers here tonight, I was from a rather religious background. I went to 9 years of Catholic school with my Irish Catholic mother. So my Irish Catholic mother, when I was 12, actually walked in on me masturbating. Yeah, and I didn't know what masturbation was because they didn't tell us in Catholic school. So I thought it was like this thing that only I did, that I was literally insane, like I was the only person in the world. Seriously. For years. That could explain a little bit why I am the way I am, but nobody told me what it was, so I thought like my deepest, darkest secret is like I do this thing when I'm alone. Like it was a whole thing in my head, and my mom walked in on me, and like Oprah was on TV in the background. It was a whole thing. But I actually told that story at the Momotaro's show, and I always wanted to have like, I try to have like a serious center to my stories because I'm a very emotional person, I've been through a lot. And I really wanted to tie it up with something that's been on my mind since the last time I was on this stage last year for the Halloween Slam, and I told one of my Me Too stories, and I was wearing a Wonder Woman costume, and I really wanted to do that in the Wonder Woman costume because I was trying to make a point. And I wanted to carry that over into my story at the Mickey's show, so I tried to tie that up with this message about, which I still stand by, is that we need to change the dialogue that we have about women's bodies and how we don't teach little girls, I don't mean little girls per se, but we don't teach women, like young women, that it's okay to feel good about our bodies, or that it's okay to be worried about what we want, and like, especially if we're, thank you, I think that needs to be talked about. We don't, we spent so many years like not really talking about like a women's pleasure, or oh, it's taboo if you show a woman in a movie masturbating, or it's taboo if you see a guy going down on a woman and not the other way around. Like, that's bullshit. So I wanted to tie that up, and I did that. So I was really happy with that. So this story takes place on that night. It was technically May 31st by this time. Mickey's show gets done, Momotaro's play last. It's like 2:30 by the time I get home. And so technically it's May 31st. I get home, and I'm walking up to my house, and I see like lone shadowy figures in the dark, and I'm like, okay, it's a little unusual. It's 2:30 on a Wednesday night, I believe it was, and this is kind of strange, but I'm trying not to, pay too much attention to that. I'm just gonna go inside and, rest. So I'm going inside, and then one of the figures speaks to me, and I hear this young female voice say, "I like your dress." And I'm like, oh, thank you, like in the dark to this person that I don't even know who's in front of my house. And I was wearing this sparkly pink dress, so I'm like, thank you, and I just go inside. And then right when I go inside, like I was so kind of caught up in my feelings at that point, and kind of the high of like achieving this personal goal that I'd had of opening this show, that I wasn't thinking about everything in context. And then about 2 minutes after I got inside and I was walking into my room to change, then I really thought about it, and I was like, wait, why the hell were there people in front of my house at 2:30 in the morning, and one of them complimented my dress? And right as I was having this thought, I hear the door. We don't have an official doorbell at my house, but I hear the knock, 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 knock of the door, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I know that there's people outside, so I don't know what to do, and eventually I hear it again, knock, 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 knock. So I go finally into the living room, and I'm standing in front of the living room window, which has the curtains closed, and I go, who is it? And this female voice that I'd heard before that complimented me says her name, and it's a name that I don't know. And I go, can I help you with something? So I'm shouting through the house. I can't see her. I still don't know what she looks like because I didn't see her in the dark. And she goes, can you make a phone call for me? And at first I'm thinking, what the hell is this? She wants me to make a phone call. And I'm like, okay, who do you want me to call? Still yelling through the curtains. And she gives me, I can't remember the name of the thing that she wanted me to call, but it was something to do with, she wanted me to report that she had run away from home. Like she wanted to actually turn herself in, is what she wanted to do. And I was really unclear on that at first. So I go up closer to the window, and I'm like bent over by the curtain, because I'm still afraid to go outside. Because my mom, another nice tie-in with like how women are raised, and how a lot of women and people who maybe aren't like straight, tall, white dudes feel a lot of fear, like in the outside world. My mom got robbed. My mom is, an older lady by now, so she had gotten robbed like not too long ago. So I'm always a little more paranoid since then. So I'm like afraid to go outside. And then after a minute, I realized like this is a teenage girl. Like she clearly needs help. It's 2:30 in the morning. There aren't any other people outside now. I don't hear any other voices. Like, what the fuck am I doing? So I go outside. I open up the screen door. I go outside, and there's mosquitoes like eating me alive that are clearly really happy that we're outside because they got fresh blood to suck. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what do you need? And she's like, I ran away from home. And I'm like, well, you need me to make this phone call? Yeah, I do. So she gives me the number. She was really smart. She knew the number that I needed to call. I looked it up to make sure it was the right number. I call them, and I'm like, hi, so I have this young person on my porch. This is her name. She's run away from home today, and she needs someone to come pick her up. Her parents couldn't pick her up at that point. So I'm like, here's my address. They're very calm over the phone. They tell me, okay, like, well, where are you? What happened? Is she hurt? And I'm like, no, she doesn't appear to be hurt. She doesn't appear to be, in any kind of trouble other than she ran away from home. Like she needs someone to pick her up. I'm not able to take her back to where she needs to go. So, you guys can come here. We're going to be waiting. Okay. So we get that sorted out. And while they're on their way to pick her up, I'm like, do you want to talk? Like, how about I just wait out here with you while they come to pick you up? And she's like, yeah, please don't go anywhere. I'm like, okay, it's fine. So I just ask her, like, what happened? Do you feel comfortable telling me, what made you want to run away? And she's like, well, I didn't want to go back home. My mom doesn't understand, like she's tired of me, and I'm not gonna live with her anymore at this point. And I was in class, and so she was over at Memorial High School, which is one of the high schools that I went to, and she tells me about how she has PTSD, and I don't ask her like what circumstances, brought this on, but because I knew a lot of teenagers with PTSD. My old best friend had PTSD because she got raped when she was 13 and couldn't sleep for a really long time after that. She had PTSD when she was like 13. So I don't ask any questions about that, but I'm like, okay. So she's like, I was in the middle of class and I started to have a panic attack. And one of her psychiatrists, I believe it was, had told her that when she gets like a panic attack in class, one of the things that she learned through experience, one of the things that helped calm her down is coloring. And it sounds really elementary to some people, but if you've been living under a rock for the last few years, you might realize that there's a lot of adult coloring books now. It's kind of a whole thing. Part of it, at first when I heard about it, I thought it was really kind of dumb. But now, as I've known more people who it helps them cope with stress, I'm like, okay, it's not something I really want to do, but if that helps you, like, I'm nobody to criticize that. So she pulled out this coloring book that she had. In class, she just silently took it out and started coloring because she was like, I want to, calm down, whatever. She was trying not to freak out in front of everyone. And her teacher starts yelling at her. Her teacher's like, you need to put that away. This is ridiculous during class. And she tries to tell her teacher, like, I feel like I'm having a panic attack. I have this note from a doctor that says I can do this in class if I'm having a panic attack, so I don't have to leave class. And the teacher starts yelling at her, no, you can't do that. That's unacceptable. I don't accept it. You need to leave my class right now. So she got even more freaked out. So she just walked out of the school. She walked out of Memorial. She met some friends up at Westtown, which, in case you don't know, is right near that high school. And they just didn't want to go back home. She didn't want to go back to her house. The living situation at her house, there was some drama with her brother. There was, parents that don't either want to or don't seem fully equipped to take care of this young girl. And so she had just basically wandered all night, like around Madison, and ended up at my house on the west side. And the person, she had been with a female friend when I had come out of the car, I guess, and that friend had decided to walk home. I didn't know how to get hold of her. And so we're just waiting there. And eventually, as she's telling me this story, I'm looking around. I've got the porch light on so the people can see us. And I notice on her arms are all these white lines across here and here. And she tells me, like, I color and I do stuff like that because I used to do this to myself. Because I used to think that calmed me down, because I would panic and I didn't know what to do and I would hurt myself. And at that moment, I told her something that I really am very selective about who I tell this to, but I'm just going to say it right now. And I told her, I used to do that same thing to myself, that exact same thing, when I was the age that you are now. And I did. She was like 15. And I was like, I did that in high school, and I didn't tell anybody, and I would always wear all these bracelets so people couldn't really tell. And I wasn't doing it for attention. I was severely depressed, and I had an eating disorder that I also didn't tell people about. And when I didn't lose the weight that I wanted to lose from starving myself, I would cut myself. And I had this boyfriend who was super abusive in high school that found out that I did it and then did it to himself to like upstage me, because everything that I did wasn't enough. And he's dead now. He committed suicide like 3 years ago. I didn't tell her all that, but I just said, look, I used to do the same thing. And I was like, I'm so glad. I didn't know what else to say, but I was like, I'm so glad that you are not doing that to yourself anymore. And can you promise me that if you ever want to do that again, that you have somebody that you can call, or that you call somebody, that you reach out to somebody and you tell them that so you can get some help? I was like, will you promise me that? And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do it again. So finally, police car shows up, and this guy comes out. And he's like, hey, do you know this girl? I'm like, yeah, look, this is the girl that I made the phone call about. She was very polite. She asked me to call you guys. She needs a ride home. She knows where she's going. I just wasn't able to take her. So she goes in the car, and we had both been getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, because it's May 31st, and we're both wearing tank tops. And she asked me, hey, do you have a shirt that I can borrow? Like, I don't have another shirt. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. So I quickly run back in my house, and I'm panicking because I'm like, you know what? I have all these shirts that I could give her. I have all these shirts I was going to sell. Like, which one? And I'm freaking out, and I don't know. So I just grab one, and it turned out to be a shirt that I had been given as a present when I was like 14 years old from my mom. And I look at it, and I'm like, this is going to a better home. So I'm like, is this okay? It's probably not your size. I'm sorry. It's too warm. She's like, no, I don't care. So she takes it. She goes in the car, and the police officer asks me, he's like, I just need to ask you, like, privately now. She can't hear us. Is she hurt? Like, did she do something to herself? Did she do something to another person? I just said, look, not that I know of. Literally, she just came to my house. I came back from a speaking engagement at a bar. She was waiting here for me. I didn't know what she wanted, but she was very calm. Like, she didn't do anything. We just waited here for you. And he goes, okay. I'm like, I don't know her beyond that. Everything she seems to be telling the truth. So he thanks me, and they go off in that car. And when I got back inside, finally, after everything had settled down, she had told me her full name, so I just looked up. I Googled her, and I saw that she had been missing that day. Like, she had been reported missing. There were posts on Facebook that said her full name. And I've never seen her again. I've never heard about her missing again, thankfully, and I'm really happy for that. I hope that I never hear that name again in conjunction with any missing persons or anything terrible. But I guess the story doesn't really have a proper end. I still think about Alexis sometimes. I always hope that she's okay, because I might not have run away from home, and I might not have been through all the same things that she went through, but in some ways I was like Alexis when I was 15 and 16, so I think about her, and I think about all the people like that, and I always just say a little prayer, and I hope that they're okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Muirrieyah.